Okay, guys, are you? Can you hear me? Just a thumbs up if you can hear me. I see my friend Maxime.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for being late. The price of success, I guess, were too many, and I had to update the plan, so we did. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. You guys are from everywhere around the world, and thank you. Muchas gracias. So, I need my assistant there. How do we do this to link the lecture? You just don't want to see my face, you want to see the picture. Okay, some people can still, okay. The lecture is, wrap the lecture. Shukri, you're rolling your eyes, I see you. It's this one. Webinar. Okay, thank you. Yeah. You have to be keen on it. Do that if you have. This is you now, okay? So,
you have to go through here. You have to share screen.
I think some people are not on mute. I'm hearing in the back. Okay, can you see the picture? Yes, thumb up. Okay.
Yes.
So I think everybody's here. I'm hoping. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for joining this second webinar we're putting together during those difficult times. And but you know we're being creative, and we are still accomplishing our missions to share passions and inspiration in dentistry. So the focus is you, my friends. Very thankful. It's humbling to know that people are staying up or getting up early from the West Coast or staying up in Asia. I know we have some Chinese and some people from Taiwan today with us. So it is my duty to share as much as possible with the time being. You know, we have an hour and a half. Go over always. I'm running late. That's my little special effect, but it is to ensure content and a rich content. Okay, so for the people who don't know me yet, I know some of you have seen my pictures of Europe or France. That's my origins. So this is my origin. I'm from the south of France, per se. I go fast. There's important, but it is who I am. I'm going to pause a second.
Okay, can everyone who isn't on mute please mute themselves?
Yeah, thank you guys. Good idea. So I go back one picture. No, it's not important. So anyway, my thing is frozen. Great. It's a fiasco. Okay, that's where we had problem last time. So maybe it's good. Let's start over. So my origin in France, and then in 1997 I moved to the US, and you see me young there. In 1997, so I came to the US, to the state of Maine, and big change, obviously contrast with the south of France. The weather was not the same, and this is the passion of dentistry that put me there to the East Coast and the north of the US. And so what a shock, what a contrast, and what a culture shock, and what an amazing time, because you know when you learn is you're being fulfilled, and it was growth for me, and a lot of interesting years with the prosthodontist, the gentleman you see there on my right, Dr. Sarbeck, Bruce Sarbeck. Very a big chance in my life. In 2001, I moved to Chicago, and I had my first laboratory in the suburb of the Windy City, the second or third city of the US. And for 14 years, I worked with one of the 19 prosthodontists of the state of Illinois, Dr. Kopp, and I've grown a lot there too. So it was the second step of stage in the US, and as interesting as the first one on the East Coast. Then it was time for me to pack and go and move to downtown, to adapt to the new world and this philosophy I have to be close to patients. So I wanted to be available and be in the city. And I opened the laboratory about 1.5 years ago. And you see, this gives you a hint, the open kitchen style. So being available and being visible to patients, to show them, to create value, and to show them the work we do. Because most of them, as you know, they assume, the tooth is ready and is being, pre-done or pre-made and in a drawer, and we just pick a color and we get a tooth. There's nothing more customized than a tooth. And if you're convinced of that, you can be convincing to patients and to doctors to pay a higher fee, because this is the key of success in life, to charge for the work and the time we spend, work we do and the time we spend. So I have this laboratory in Chicago, and I'll present you a little bit the city. The gentleman on the bottom left is Body Guy. Chicago is known for being the capital of blues in the world. So if you want to have real blues, you come to visit. Or basketball, in the 90s we had, or early 2000s, late 90s we had Michael Jordan. Obama is also from here. And of course, the most famous resident, or former resident of Chicago is Al Capone. So this is what the city is famous for. Let's go back to what you came here for, the art and science of layering. So usually, this is when my attendance is asking questions, and when they stay sharp and awake, and they get even closer to me when I'm doing a hands-on. So layering, it's the alchemy of dentistry. It's when magic happens. And I'm always, still excited to see the result of my layering after a firing. So I have to insist that, yes, it's important, but it's not the most important. And especially, we do not focus just on the incisor ledge, even though we will describe some interesting effects and contrasts that I create, and when we have certain goals, soft or very abrupt or hard effects, and higher contrast. So we can discuss about this after the lecture. But usually, I've noticed that when I start mixing powder, that's when people get close and ask a lot of questions. But we have to ask the right questions. It's what powder, which powder, why, where, and how much. Those questions, we have to be very thorough. I think dental technology is not just an art. It is a science also, and I think we are engineers. We are not just artists. We are scientists, engineers, a mix of everything. So it's important to be disciplined. It's not just, I'm looking for example, an assistant here, and many friends suggest, go to an art school, put an advertisement. That's the last thing I want to do. I prefer somebody disciplined than just a free artist. Let's keep going. Nature, it's our model. And in layering, the issue, I think, that most people have, or the mistake we make, and I have made that mistake, is to look at, cross-section of teeth or polarized, cross-polarized filter pictures of natural teeth. It's very beautiful, very inspiring. But to be very honest with you, this is the inside of the tooth, and the tooth enamel is organic. Even the most beautiful ceramic and the latest ceramic, synthetic or even natural feldspar, it is not organic. You can take any brand, and I'm not about this. I'm about really demystifying. I want to set you free. I want you guys to understand layering and ceramic. I'm not there to represent the company, and that's my mark. That's my reputation. I'm working for all of you guys today. So I want to give you, at least 5 tips of layering, a principle of layering, and 5 little astuces, like we say in French, or tricks, like we say in English, so you can enhance your work and your life. So nature and ceramic, they can, restoration, they can almost appear like natural teeth. Those are on the left are 4 veneers, and on the right 2 veneers, 8 and 9, or 21 and 11. So you can see them from different aspects with transmitted light, and it's close to nature. The picture on the right, you will not know that there are only 2 veneers. It could be 4, it could be 3, or it could be none. But it is the closest we can get to nature is when we are very, very conservative. Those are minimal preparations, non-invasive porcelain veneers, and the reaction to light is close to enamel. But why? Because, well, it's not a 360-degree preparation. It's very light, very non-invasive, and it's just a facial. And there is no substructure, no framework, no zirconia, no metal, no alumina, no lithium disilicate. That's why we're close to nature. The truth is, there are a lot of nonsense in the industry, a lot of advertisements. Marketing people usually drive the industry, not the professional. Professional marketing, not the professional dentist or technicians. So there is a lot of erotic pictures, or it's almost, we call dental porn. Those cover of magazines are very inspiring, very beautiful. They are natural teeth. But the truth is, how many people do you really see, with a light bulb like this? Maybe next year, if the government tells us to remove the mask and put the light bulb in our mouth, we all obey and we follow orders. But not everybody is that, submissive and dumb. So we're going to think for ourselves. And that's my mission today. I want you to think for yourself. So let's go back to things more technical. But the truth is, this is how we see teeth. We see teeth from the front. I want life in my work. But there is a lot we can't do. And playing with light like nature, we are not able to, not with ceramic. Again, it's not organic. Single central, I can make them even with porcelain fused to metal, and they match. They match retracted, and they match with the lip in place at rest position, which is actually a very tricky position because ceramic has to absorb now, absorb light like nature, like the natural tooth on the right of the screen, which means the left of the patient. So 8 is a ceramic, number 9 is a natural tooth. And you see, retracted or not, we're matching. And that's mission accomplished. And even from the side, with a different light source, good harmony, good integration. So what happened there? I'm working with light, yes, but I'm also working with illusion. And that's the whole point. We mimic teeth from the outside, not from the inside. So layering actually is before ceramic and after firing ceramic. So it's really opaque and with stains from the inside to the outside. Okay, so from the opaque, we create illusion and tricking the eyes and matching gingiva or tissue reflection on the tooth with pink opaque. So I'm still, an advocate of porcelain fused to metal system. I like it. I still do it, especially on implants, and we can, discuss about this after. And all the way to the stain. So no stage is neglected. It's not just the layering, just the effect, just the halo, just the incisal edge. Please stop focusing on that stage only. It is every step, every stage. That's how you make a beautiful tooth. You gain a few degrees of quality at every stage, every level. That's how you increase your work of 100%, because there are so many stages to make a tooth. So illusion, that's what I'm talking about, tricking the eyes, playing with people's perception, especially when you work with porcelain fused to metal. a little less when you work with lithium disilicate. And by the way, porcelain fused to metal and zirconia, the same. It's the same type of attitude, the same type of layering. We have to recreate, an entire tooth because the framework is so opacious. So one is white, one is gray or yellow, but it doesn't matter. We have to recreate complete illusion. So you see those bands on the left, they are actually parallel. You obviously don't perceive them parallel. They look canted. They look like they are bending, but they are not. If you squint the eyes and if you see it, if you remove your focus, the picture on the right, it's the exact same. And obviously, you perceive them now because you remove all the little details and you perceive them parallel. If you if you don't believe me, we can verify with a red line and we move it to the bottom there on top of it, and it is actually parallel. That the proof is there in the pudding. So other illusion, other type of trick, other type of art form, by mastering shape, proportion, color, we perceive this floor being, having a hole almost, but actually the floor is flat. So this is how crazy perception can be and can be manipulated. So let's go back to something closer than teeth now. Why are we layering, honestly? Why are we layering? Just to make it fancy? Well, for two reasons. The first one is, I'm sure nobody guesses one. The first reason is function. You layer to have a porcelain that can be adjusted, that can wear with the years during mastication, can be adjusted for the dentist to just use a bite paper and simply adjust for function to make it soft for the opposing arch. So I'm happy to see kids following there with daddy. So thank you, welcome. Maybe a future technician. Thank you. So this is a circle. And from a circle, by layering, that's the second reason why we layer, by the way. Function first, the second, aesthetic. We create depth. From a circle, we can create a sphere by just using color, using different porcelain powders, different color, different effects, different opacities, different chroma saturation, dimension number 1, hue, dimension number 2, third dimension, the most important, the value, okay? The value is the scale of gray, plus from the white to black, its value or luminosity. So we can discuss about the value and the other dimensions after. But this is important there. From a circle, we go to a sphere. It's from basic to complex layering. Now, you're in your office, you don't meet the patient. Okay, you are in Berlin, Germany, and your patients are in Stuttgart. You have a client in Stuttgart, or in Paris, whatever. So they can't come to your office. I have doctors in Texas, and we're in Chicago. This is 3-hour flight, 2.5-hour flight. My patients can't always come to the laboratory. So I get an A1 there, the request. Sorry. We get an A1, a request, and what do? You just open the bottle A1, okay, to be sure. Or you can do a complex layering. And this is how you make teeth magnificent with more depth, more contrast, but you have to fall on your feet. You don't want to take a chance. You don't want to go away from the goal. The goal is an A1. So how do you do that? You can play safe again and put the bottle A1 and layer, or you can take different powders. You can do that in the dentine, or you can do that in the enamel. So the dentin, for example, how do we do an A1? Well, you can do A1, A0, and A2. And it's all mathematic. That's why we have to be disciplined. It's not art there, okay? It's very basic, very simple. But you can go from a simple to a complex layering. An A1, an A0. A0, by the way, everybody understood what it is. It's a bleach shade, okay? The number is the amount of chroma. So if you have an A0, the same quantity, obviously, would be 33% each powder, or you take less risk. You have 50% A1, 25% A0, 25% A2, but the sum is an A3. And obviously, you have 3 parts divided by 3. It's an A1. If you have to take one picture with your iPhone, assuming you have an iPhone next to you and you don't record on a lecture, but take a picture, take this one, because this is key. If you learn one thing there, this is it. You know, you don't want to go away from the goal. The goal is an A1, but you don't have to use just one dentin. You start creating contrast. You know, you have a higher chroma, the gingiva, of course, in the heart of the tooth. You know, the highest contour, usually you're going to use a bleach. And in the incisal, well, incisal edge, actually, you have more color there, a little more chroma, not as much as a gingiva, but you have some color on the incisal edge. So you go back to an A1. And 3 powder doesn't mean 3 contrast. You know, you can use A1 or A0 at the gingiva next to an A2, and then one underlines the other. You cannot see an A2 without an A0 next to it. It's all about contrast, okay? So simple layering, less contrast, more flat, and less life. More contrast on the right for complex layering, 3D effects or 4 dimensions with the translucency, but with a 3-dimensional effect and more life. This is basic, but very important. Now, you can do the same thing with enamel. Okay, the enamel, usually you control the value. If you use a white enamel, like a bleach enamel, so which is a whiter than it should be for an A1, you have to use something with more gray, with the possibility to absorb light, or with gray pigment, which is something we need to discuss. You guys, you have to remind me during the discussion to talk about the difference between light, playing with light, and playing with pigment. Obviously, when we play with pigment, it is because there are stains inside, you know, natural metallic stain or metallic oxides in ceramic. So you see, we fall on our feet again. A +1 -1 is a 0. We are balanced. You cannot just add a white and then a pearl or whatever you call it, depending on which porcelain you use. But it can be a 57, and then you go too white, and then you just go away from the goal. In the end, they need to be balanced. It's a scale. You need to compensate. You know, if you use something warm, you need something cold. If you use something gray, you need to use something white. It's something opaque, and the same thing for translucency. Something translucent, something more opaque, to go back to 0. So to be honest with you, one of the most important steps in layering is the dentin support. In my hands-on, for the ones I know, I recognize some faces there, people who came into my office and spent 3 days in Chicago with me, or somewhere outside the US when I traveled to Europe. You know my technique, and it's important. I don't allow people to apply enamel until I approve the dentin support. So I go around usually tables with my brush, my knife, and I approve and I check and I modify the dentin before everybody applies the enamel. Super important. Because what is a dentin? give another name of dentine support. It's the framework of the enamel. The framework, the substructure is a framework of the dentine. The dentine is a framework of the enamel. Okay? So we don't just layer like this randomly. We are in total control. The proof is, if you know homothétie, homothetic, it means the same shape. Okay? In Greek, it means the same. So we have to have a supportive dentine with metrics, obviously. They basic, but basic things, for some reason people neglect them. When I show that, I see people, they said, yeah, I know that already. But the problem is, who really does that on a daily basis? So maybe it is a reminder, but please do that, because this influences the final result. What do you notice on the right? On the right picture is my dentine, but you see it's a porcelain veneer case, and I have contact there. I have contact. The water is traveling from the canine to the lateral and from the lateral to the canine. If I apply an effect on my canine, well, my lateral is being fed with water. Because if you learn a second thing there, it's moisture control. Obviously, you don't need a fancy wet tray. I use a simple glass, from creation. I had that for over 20 years. And a paper towel, wet with a lot of water, not too much. We don't want to feed the porcelain, but we don't want the porcelain, it has to be equal amount of water. The porcelain mixed with the paper towel. But honestly, I can keep my porcelain like this with, for hours on my table. And I'm very comfortable to layer. I take my time. So we talk about dentine support there. If you go back, if you make the mistake again to go back to natural teeth and see the inside instead of seeing the outside, and you see how much enamel you have, you see the whole entire enamel there is with color, and you see the cut with the dentine. So you want to be greedy and say, I'm going to get as much room as possible in my cut back of the dentine. So when you have a single central, you have that attitude. You say, if I have a lot of enamel, I'm going to have a lot of translucency and a lot of life, because we associate enamel to life. And the truth is, that's a mistake we all make. You see those two crowns? They're beautiful. I layer them, I fire them. I already had a crack on the fascia there, ready to put the stains. The truth, when I tried them clinically, too gray. Why? Not enough dentine. Okay? This is impossible to fix. And you can try. You can add some white, you think you're not white enough. It's not about that. It's about the dentine. The dentine was not supportive enough, too much enamel. I copy nature too much. Those cross-section of teeth. So there is one solution when you have that you strip the porcelain. Of course, you glaze one, so you feel, psychologically, I feel I am a little closer to the goal. I didn't waste my day. But the lateral was acceptable, so I glaze it. And then, so I frame, my work by finishing one. So really focus on the central. Like an example of opacious powder. Actually, this was very unique layering. And you see the layering is not just the powders you choose, it's the shape of the support. This is actually the shape, you see, the shape of the dentine support. Instead of going in, we're going out. The opaque effects, like the mamelons, have to come out. Almost almost no enamel in this case. And you see a little closer the incisal edge, those effects, and I think I used some making So making for creation, for if you guys use initial is fluodentin. If you use classic porcelain is mamelon, MM1. It doesn't matter what you use, but it's the reflective index that counts, the level of opacity. These are more opaque than opaque dentin. So they are the most opaque powders. And this is high reflective index again. So we glaze it, and you see the final result. Look at the incisor edge on the picture on the left or the right, actually, different angles. But look at the center. There is almost no enamel. The dentin shows through, and this is a result clinically. And even with a low amount of light and with the lip at rest position, the upper lip covering the teeth, creating a shadow, so we have an absorption there of teeth. My crowns, my restorations do not look gray. So we have the right effect there, just because of the dentin support. Look what we can do again, illusion, just with those opacious powders. This is an interesting case. Their porcelain veneers are refractory, but the width, you see those two vertical red lines, show that actually the width of the teeth is a problem. I'm almost wider on the cervical than I am in the body of the tooth. So with very opaque powder there, I'm recreating the right ratio, the right shape of a natural tooth. It's just playing with the eyes, tricking the eyes of the observer. It's just pure illusion. And this is fine. This is extremely opaque. This is on the refractory, underneath the dentin. And I can just, this is fine. We don't see it yet. It's not removed from the refractory, but this is, how you treat the eyes of an observer and compensate, for the shape of the teeth, or the natural teeth. We enhance nature. We don't have to keep nature the way it is. We enhance it. So I'm going to show you where do we create translucency. These are 3 cases. They are restorations, 2 centrals on the left, 2 centrals in the middle, and a lateral and a canine on the right. If you uncover the gingiva there, the tooth tissue relationship, we have actually nice effect on the left, too opaque, too abrupt, too much contrast in the middle, and a little gray effect there, some umbrella effect on the right. And as you see, you don't need to look at the incisor. This is not important. Incisor edge, you can make it more simple. You don't have to spend so much time layering and creating all those effects and contrast. The gingiva is the most important. And of course, the one on the right and in the middle, they are artificial looking, and the one on the left is more lifelike. So what do we do when we can? How do we have that soft, natural effect? Well, we simply create a window. We don't want any dentin there. So for porcelain veneers, well, we don't go to the margin. We leave a window, open window. That's how you have a contact lens margin. And we let the light penetrate there in the tooth and come out through the tissue, through the root and through the tissue to have a natural effect. If you have the dentin or the opacious dentin all the way to the margin, well, you're in trouble. Now you're going to have a very high contrast, and that's not going to be nice. That's why we have to cut back, frameworks like metal or zirconia. Something important about layering again, about the dentin support. I very rare to see beautiful lower teeth. And why? Because they're small, it's hard. But the most important, to be honest with you, is because nobody or very few people understood that we don't layer them like upper teeth. We layer them in a different way. There is almost no incisor. You remember the upper central layer with the dentine showing through? This is how I make lower teeth. The enamel is only in the interproximal, the bluish and the gray and the translucent powders only in the interproximal. When you have those nice cut back there on lower teeth, they never look good clinically, never. Again, dentine support. I have a very interesting case there. This young lady had an accident with, her single natural teeth, so she broke the incisor edge. Of course, we want to be very conservative. So we prepare on the plaster, we train, we have how much room do I really need there? 3/10 of millimeter, no more. So I'm preparing on the plaster. I show the doctor, he matched this. And this is a real preparation now, the real from the impression. And you see how much room I have, very, very little. I have 2/3 millimeter at the most. And so what do we use? Enamel. Only enamel, we're on the enamel. And I'm sorry I didn't clean. I finally found this picture. I was showing this case a month ago, and I was mentioning that picture of the first veneer I made, and it was off. So why? Because there is I didn't use any dentine, because I'm in the enamel of the tooth. And this is, if you learn a third or fourth thing in this lecture, is that it's not because you're in the enamel that you use enamel porcelain. Don't look at the name of the bottle. Again, I want to demystify layering. I want you to reach independence there. We are, aware of the effect of the powder within the bottle. Again, my vocabulary, my language is the scale of opacity. It's not because I'm in the enamel of the prep of the natural tooth that I'm using just enamel. If I use just enamel, I am too transparent, not opaque enough, not dense enough. And the result is great. So I had to remake this veneer entirely. And this is, immediately correct, because of the thought process. If I'm too gray, it's about probably all the enamel is wrong, and I can maybe use a white enamel. But keep in mind, a white enamel is opaque. A white enamel is almost a dentine, okay? When you have an E3 or an E4 with Ivoclar, it's almost a bleach dentine. E4, it's almost a bleach dentine. With, obviously some neutral inside, some transparent. But a bleach, if I don't have, the day I don't have an enamel to finish a molar, to make a cusp, what am I using? I take a dentine and I take a neutral 50%, and that's an enamel. Not a transparent, an incisor. An incisor, again, I repeat it, so you start, thinking like me. An enamel is a dentine with a neutral, mixed 50%. So this is the result of my central. If you have the perfect layering and you don't have the right trim paste and resin cement for a veneer, you wasted your time, okay? So this is the biggest issue, I guess, in the industry. I wish some smart engineer would manufacture, trim paste, a cement, a temporary cement, and a permanent cement with the same viscosity and the same opacity. And then we would, be in total control, because you can make a nice veneer and then you try it with Vaseline and the dentist bonded with something else. Well, you lost, you're off the shape. So this is, after cementation, my porcelain veneers. This is 98% correct. This is success. And only because of the thought process. I have a result, you can't fix it. You know, not enough denting, not enough support. So you strip, you don't strip, you start again. You know, I have a second die and I start over. So thank you for the lecture part. Now we can take a 1 minute break and I'm going to transition to a video of the denting. And during discussion, we can talk about enamels because I think you have a lot of questions about incisal and some special effect, especially for bleach teeth. So let me switch to the video now. Make sure we don't have the sound.
You look to nature.
So do that.